Welcome to the Extra Mile podcast for bar exam takers. There are no traffic jams along the extra mile when you're studying for your bar exam. And now your hosts, Jackson Mummy and Megan Saya from Celebration Bar Review.
Hey everybody, welcome. Hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. So you get the weekend and the week off. Pretty good deal.
Yes, yeah. Time to take the first time off from the bar in a year and
Let's say a year and a half, because we just never got any time off during that crazy July of 2020 season that became August and September and October. So
then bled right into February. So yes.
Everything's fine. We're all good. No worries. Just keep calm, study on. That's our message for today. All right, let's talk about the last piece of result news that we got around the country this week.
Yes, so Georgia finally released their results. So that was, feels like a long wait from the February exam until we got those results in.
Really long, and I don't know why Georgia takes so long. It's not like they got more students in California or New York. But in any event, their results came out. Now, one of the things that's really infuriating about Georgia, one of many, is that they do not release their statistics for a while. So we don't know what the overall rates are. We'll look at that and we'll announce that when we find out. But as of right now, I don't believe they've made an official announcement. We had a great deal of success. I will say that. We had a number of students passing the exam, a number of repeat bar takers who passed with us. And I have scheduled a couple of interviews. I'm hoping to schedule more with some Georgia bar takers. I know that those interviews are always very popular. It's an interesting phenomenon to me. I really appreciate every single student that does an interview because I know it's bearing their soul to the world. And the people that do it are very brave to do. But the impact that their stories tell is incredible. I wish that everybody could see and hear what I see and hear. I have so many people that I talk to on a daily basis who say, I watched this interview with somebody and they were telling my life story and it made all the difference to me. And this is why I want to do it. There's a fine line between pushing too hard and we want to invite people that we think have good stories. Everyone's story is interesting, but not everyone's story is necessarily compelling. But we do try to get people to tell their stories and do these interviews. So we continue to try and put those together for you. But I think we're now up to pretty close to 90 to 100 of those video interviews. So that's a lot. You should find somebody in there that's like you, I think, somewhere in those jurisdictions. So anyway, congratulations to everybody that passed in Georgia. If you were one of the students that took the exam and did not pass, and I will say for anybody that's trying to think about starting their studies now for the July exam, I would say that for most people, you're probably in the 25 to 30 hour a week range if you're just starting out right now. If you've been studying for a while, maybe a little bit less than that, but most of you should be around 20 hours. Does that sound about right to you, Megan?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so that's the number to be aiming for. And of course, we're now in the weekly email countdown series, and that will continue on for a couple more weeks. And then we'll go to a daily when we get into the 30-day window. So a lot of information there. So yeah, I know. Really? Yeah, no, 30 days, still a ways away. We still got a while to go before we get there.
It's just dropped.
I got to write these things. So there you go. All right. So that's what we know. I think that Georgia wrapped up the season. I don't know that there were any other major jurisdictions. I don't think there were, that we were waiting on results. So everybody's in now. And we don't really have any changes in terms of format for the July exams anywhere, do we?
No, I think things are pretty stable now, which is really, gosh, that feels nice, doesn't it? After so long, the last time things were stable was the February 2020 exam. So yeah.
That's just crazy. Yeah. So if your jurisdiction said online, it's online. If they said in person, it looks like it's in person. And I think that's where we're headed. I think it will be very interesting to see as the pandemic gets under greater control, whether jurisdictions in February of 2022 go online again, or if they go back to in person. I think a lot of these jurisdictions would rather stay online now if they can do it. And I think that genie is out of the bottle in a lot of places. We'll see what happens. Of course, in part, it depends on the National Conference of Bar Examiners and their willingness to do an online exam.
Exactly.
So that's where it starts. So probably what will happen is California will force their hand early on after the July test, and we'll see what happens. But anyway, there you go.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on it for sure. All right. I just purchased a mind map webinar last week. Do I still need bar maps?
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about bar maps and the difference between bar maps and mind maps. Mind maps are the process literally of your note taking. It's the visual representation of the material, and anyone can mind map. You can do it by hand. You can use a computer program, as Megan's fond of saying, just do it. So that's mind mapping. And we have a webinar that shows you how to mind map for the bar exam. Then we have a separate product called Bar Maps. Bar Maps is actually 3 products rolled into one. It includes a set of mind maps for every subject that is a couple of levels deep based on our table of contents. So we built mind maps, the initial structure for each subject, out of the first level of table of contents and the second level of the table of contents. And those are the ones we were talking about earlier that you can copy and then amend. Now, another part of bar maps is that we've taken the video lectures for those same subjects and we've broken them into smaller modules, typically about 10 to 20 minutes, usually in length, but about 6 modules per lecture. And we've identified those so that you can go in and when you're in review, which is really where you want to use bar maps, you go in and you say, oh, I found that there's one part of that lecture I wanted to go back again, but I don't want to listen to 3 hours of lecture. So it lets you pinpoint exactly what you need based on subject matter, which I think is really helpful. And then the third component of bar maps is a series of fast finish audios. These are the audio soundtracks to the lectures that have been recorded so that you can listen to the entire lecture in typically under 2 hours, which is also great for just turning on, putting on your headphones or your earbuds and just listening to it while you're multitasking. It's designed for non-conscious repetition. So all 3 of those items are in something called bar maps. And if you've ordered bar maps, it'll be in your online course. You'll have a bar maps for the multi-state and typically a bar maps for your state course, and all of the subjects are included. Everything is there. Now, if you are mind mapping, should you get bar maps? Yeah, absolutely, because bar maps is an enhancement to that process. If you have bar maps and you're not sure how to do mind maps, get the mind map webinar. They're coordinated, and I think they will be helpful to you. But whatever you're doing, use mind maps. We just got the Georgia results. And again, Georgia was an open book exam in February of 2021 for the essays. And students used their mind maps. That's what they brought in, not their textbooks. And it was very productive and very valuable for them. But you don't have to be in an open book jurisdiction to use mind maps. It is still the best way to take notes, I think, that exists. And I know you're a big proponent of mind mapping, Megan.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a great way to synthesize the information, to understand it and actually internalize it, to see how it all fits together. You were giving me a great example the other day of a student who was really confused about a specific subtopic, and they had in their head placed it into another category. Mind maps helps you not do that, right? It helps you where it fits in the larger subject so that if you're in one sort of subsection, you're what you need to at least be on the lookout for, and you're not going to end up going down a rabbit trail.
Yeah, this particular student was concerned or confused about res judicata and collateral estoppel and thought that those were terms that dealt with jurisdiction, which is saying the sky isn't blue or green, the sky is food. It's a different category, right? You're in the wrong spot. And so using bar maps, we identified where you could find collateral estoppel and res judicata. And we located it in the mind map. We then positioned that and then went to the interactive video to find the part of the video that actually dealt with that. And it was a way for the student to see where this part of the subject fit in, which I think is incredibly valuable. Now, I condensed all of that I've just told you into a 5-minute use case video. I sent it out to our registered students, and I think it's also on our Facebook page. If you haven't watched it, take 5 minutes and watch. I think it'll give you a really good, actual practical example of how you can use bar maps. I'm pretty excited about this product. We've had it for a couple of years now, and I think the enhancements we've made to it really just continue to make it better and more useful.
Great. All right. The next question is about what happens with doing the MPTs online. This student says, in addition to and apart from the challenges of doing an MPT online, there's another big challenge, namely answering lengthy contract and real property questions where there are timelines and multiple parties. You can't underline, highlight, no scratch paper, can't even move your lips. Please kindly address this challenge.
Yeah, I'm not sure what to say. It is a challenge. You got to be careful. We've had people flagged for moving their lips, which is pretty weird to me, but I understand, I guess, why the artificial intelligence would see it, but I don't know anybody that was disqualified for it. But I have had a couple of students that were flagged. I think that practicing the way the test is going to be given is particularly important. We did a video on how to do performance tests online. We did a video, I think, also on how to take essay tests online. And it's really more about the logistics, really, of how to do it and how to arrange your screens and make all that work. One of the things that's challenging about performance tests is that different jurisdictions are using different rules, right? Some of them are letting you have scratch paper, others are not. And so you got to check with your jurisdiction to see what their specific rules are. So I think that's part of it, but practice is really what makes it happen. I'm not sure I got the full part of the question. Was there anything else there that I didn't address?
No, I think it's just for this one, like with the essays, doing the essays online when it's really complicated. I think you need to set up a good note-taking, and I hesitate to say note-taking system, because I think what I'm hearing from some people that what they've been doing is just taking way too much time. You're not going to have time to type into the note box, like, here's every single party and here's every single concern that they could raise and here's every single defense that you just are not going to have time. So you need to find a note-taking system that works for you of how you're going to keep straight the parties that are important for each conflict and the conflict pairs. Now, when I took the bar, I did the conflict pair chart with the little T-chart. You can't do that, obviously, if you don't have any scratch paper. So what I've been suggesting to people, and Jackson, tell me if you have an alternate, because this is very much a what works for you as a student. So what I've been suggesting is write in your box of what you're going to be turning in. After you've made your outline, I would write each party that's under that conflict. So just go ahead and type them in and then give a quick little summary of what their argument would be. So what's the thing that they're going to say for why they win on this particular conflict? And then you're essentially you're going to do that for each party, and you're going to turn that into your law paragraph. So that will it'll get fleshed out more. You'll add the law in, but that's going to become your law paragraph. It's just much quicker than trying to take a bunch of notes on the side about the question. I want people to get to the writing a lot quicker than if you're sitting there doing a really deep dive on the question and taking notes on it. It's just not.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the preparation steps that we talk about, the parties, the players, the events, and then the conflict pairs, to some extent, you should treat them as training wheels. You probably won't need to do those things formally, other than some conflict pairs where the conflict is more complicated, and you may need to jot it down the way Megan just described. Let's say you're in a complicated civil procedure case. You're just trying to figure out the parties and where they are in their positions. Outside of that, you should be able to identify most of these things and start writing pretty quickly. And one of the keys is to take the call of the question, and this is particularly true in the UBE, I think more even than California, Florida, or Georgia, and use the call of the question as your outline headings. It will almost always be there for you. And so you can start to create this broad, high-level outline on your answer, and then start to fill it in as you go along, drafting the facts and the law paragraph in the application. Again, that's part of what we discuss in the writing an essay online discussion, some different strategies there. I've suggested that people might want to go through and get all their facts written in each section all the way through, and then go back and do their law paragraph and their conclusion, just to help give you some momentum as you go. But what I really want to emphasize, two things. One is Megan's point that it's what works for you. You've got to find your own way that makes sense to you. We're going to give you ideas, but try different things and see what works. And secondly, get to the writing, the actual drafting, as fast as you can. I think 5 minutes of preparation and reading and note-taking in some sort, even though that feels very short, that's really about what it takes. These are not long fact patterns in most cases, not always, but in most cases they're not. And I think if you force yourself into that 5-minute timing in practice, you'll find that you can do it. The other interesting thing is that in many jurisdictions, the essays are given now online in this 1 hour or half-hour block. And so you don't have the flexibility anymore of running overtime. Here it is, and when the clock, here's an essay and it's 1 hour, and boom, and then it's done, and then you reset for the next one. So you've really got to be disciplined about this. And the discipline should start now if you're a July bar taker. Don't be writing 40 minutes for 30-minute essays, or 70 minutes for 60-minute essays. That's not a good plan.
Yeah, definitely. Good question. All right. Will mind maps be of help to me if I'm not a photo reader?
Mind maps be of help? Yes, absolutely. Mind maps help everyone.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to be a photo reader. Now, mind maps are a great way to activate what you've photo read. So in that sense, definitely, I think you absolutely want to do that. But having said that, everyone should be using mind maps for all the reasons we've been talking about. It's just the best way to consolidate the information that we've come up with. And we see an improvement when people mind map. They just do better than when they just take regular notes. So I think it's part of it. But again, photo reading is very powerful. Mind maps enhance that. It's a way of activating what you photo read, but it doesn't mean it's exclusive to photo readers.
Yeah, great. All right. Our next question comes from someone who is set to take the July exam and is a non-native English speaker, and said, for reasons beyond my control, I've not been able to study properly. I'm starting on Monday and would like to know if there's any guide that can help me speed up the study process. And the biggest problem is the English language skills, but they really want to take it in July. Don't want to push it.
Yeah, I wish I had that magic bean, don't you? The interesting part is that there doesn't seem to really be a shortcut to being prepared. And our course is about half the length of a Barbary or Kaplan course with great success. So it's not that you have to put in 500 or 600 hours, but you probably have to put in 250 to 300 hours. And so much as I'd like to help this student, the reality is that saying you could skip the reading, or you could skip the lectures, or you could skip the question practice, what are you going to skip? Or you could skip subjects. Those things will not work. You really need to go through all of it. And when you are non-English speaking, I know that the tendency is to want to spend a lot more time in everything, particularly the reading part. You just can't do it. You got to force yourself to get through the reading in the time that's been provided. Now, one tool that would speed you up is photo reading, no question. You would invest an hour a day to learn the mechanics of photo reading while you're studying for the bar. It's not like we postpone that for a week. But in doing that, then you would be able to read your outlines in 15 minutes instead of 8 hours. And that then gives you some flexibility as far as other pieces of the study. So that would be my recommendation. I would also say there's no dishonor in having to wait. If you're not ready, you're not ready. And we talk about being a judgment-free zone. If you're not ready to take the exam, you can postpone. There's no cost in our course to postpone. There's no shame. There's nothing. We learned during the pandemic, things happen and people have to make changes. So make your best effort, do the best you can to be ready for the exam. But if you get to July 20th and you're not ready, then just say no, wave off, and come back, keep studying, and be ready for February. And the test will still be there, I promise. I think that's all I've got to say. Do you have anything to offer?
No, I think that's really helpful. That sometimes we put a lot of pressure on ourselves that maybe isn't necessary. Sometimes it is. Sometimes there are external reasons why, but sometimes we put a lot of pressure that we can let go of some of that. So if it's not realistic to be ready, that's fine. Nobody outside of you is hopefully making you feel like it's a necessity. Yeah, you have to be a good judge of your own mental health and abilities of, is this really the right choice for me?
Yeah, and this makes me, I wasn't sure I was going to talk about this, so I'm throwing Megan a curveball here. Yeah. Some of you may have seen in social media today that Kim Kardashian announced that she failed the baby bar. And we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, that she was using our materials. This happened to her last October. She's just now announcing it. And she's getting ready to take the June baby bar. Now, the point I want to make, and the reason I'm pointing it out, is not because of us, but she says in this interview on Keeping Up with the Kardashians, I'm a failure. And that is heartbreaking, because by any measure, is Kim a failure? I doubt it. I think most people would go, hey, you want to be a failure? I'll be a failure like you, Kim. But I think it is really, it's really telling to me of how hard we are on ourselves and what this exam does to people, because admittedly, she may have said it for the drama of the show, but I think that if you failed the exam, you are not a failure by any means. And I don't care what the exam is, you're not a failure. It just means you haven't passed that exam. And to the point of, if you have the courage as a non-English speaker if that's not your native language, to take a bar exam in the US, no one could accuse you of being without courage or of being a failure. Absolutely. You are doing a remarkable thing and a necessary thing because we need your voice in the bar. And so I want you to know that we are in awe of all of you, really and truly. Megan and I have been through the bar. We passed the bar. Anybody that's been has gotten to the other side can't look back and say, that was no big deal. It is a big deal. And so I don't want you caught up in that drama. And I suspect that there'll be some Kardashian drama around the bar exam now because whatever she does comes that way. But don't let that wash over you, okay? That's not you. And you don't have to take on that persona and think, if she says she's a failure, then I'm a failure, because that's just not true. So there you go. I know it's a little weird segue, but it just...
That's okay. All right. How should I use my mind maps from the February exam going forward? So this is a student who had created mind maps, took the February exam and wasn't successful. And they were asking, do I start all over again? What do I do with these?
No, you keep expanding them. That's the beauty of mind maps, in my view. If I just had regular notes, it would be like, I don't know what to do with those. But in a mind map, it just keeps growing, particularly, and you can do this by hand, but on the computer, it's so easy. You just add a new branch. You just go on, you add some detail. You identify the things you didn't know, or as you're learning, you add, or you create a new sub mind map, a smaller one that focuses in on a particular topic. And you just keep using what you've got. The mind maps are designed to grow with you as you learn. So even if you're not using them from a previous exam, if you started your mind maps for the July test a few months ago, go back and revisit them. As you do your practice multi-state questions and the practice tests and more essays, keep adding to the mind map. It reinforces what you're learning and the way your brain takes that information in. So it is a very powerful tool.
Yeah. All right. And our last question is, how do I maximize my study time after failing the exam if I don't need to start all over from the beginning again?
That's a great question, and it's a tough one because I think you don't, in a sense, you don't have to go through everything. But again, depending on if you've sent me your scorecard or score sheet, if I've evaluated, if you were in our course and I've evaluated it, for most of you, I say you got to go through everything again, because there's usually enough gaps. It's rare that somebody is so incredibly strong in one place and incredibly weak somewhere else. But if that's your case, put more emphasis certainly on the weaker areas or subjects, but don't completely ignore everything. And don't ignore a subject you did well on, because typically what happens is we see the pendulum swing too far one direction or the other. Somebody says, well, I did pretty well on multi-state, and so I'm going to emphasize the written part. And then they emphasize the written part, ignore the multi-state, and their score drops in the multi-state. So you don't want to do that. I think in general, following the study guide, but maybe with some points of emphasis. So if there are subjects I'm not doing as well in, I want to make sure in those subjects that I work with the bar maps, or I want to do mind mapping there, or I want to get some additional material to enhance what I'm doing. I would say that's probably the best way to go through, so that you're giving a little extra emphasis. But I would not skip steps. And I definitely wouldn't recommend skipping lectures. But for example, if you've already been through the course and you don't want to do all the lectures, get bar maps and just find the parts of the lecture where you really could focus in, where you're having more difficulty. It's a very effective tool. Or use the nutshells to reinforce the multi-state subjects. So there are tools that help you refine your study. But again, what you don't want to do is just completely toss things out and say, I'm not doing any reading, or I'm not doing any lectures or any questions in the subject. I think that would be a mistake.
Yes, definitely. That's what I had recommended, was the bar maps piece, because for sure it's very daunting to look and say, I've got a pretty good grasp of civil procedure, but I know there's one section or a few sections that I really could stand to understand better. And that way you can just go in, because man, you don't really want to have to listen to all those civil procedure hours if you don't need to.
Although it's a heck of a lecture.
Okay, maybe I should use real property then. And that real property, right? You can pinpoint, okay, I know that I need refreshers on these pieces, and you can go straight to this.
Yeah, and I think it's rare that somebody is completely weak on an entire subject or completely strong on a subject. They're always going to be stronger in weaker parts of the subject. And if you break it down, if you think about it, that's probably true for any topic. I understand easements, but I don't get covenants, or whatever it might be. So Yeah, so be selective in that regard, and I think that will help you. And again, these tools are really valuable, and they're designed to give you as much flexibility as possible.
Yeah. All right, that's it for this week.
Yeah, thanks to all of you. I hope everybody has a good Memorial Day weekend. I will say, as I often do before holidays, that take some time during the holiday to be present in the holiday. Spend time with family, friends, whatever. Coming out of the pandemic, I know for a lot of people, this may be the first opportunity to actually, as you're doing, Megan, have some time with family. And so that's a great opportunity for you all to have that time. Don't bring your bar review books to the barbecue, right? I mean, that'll just irritate everybody and they'll probably throw them in the fire. Study when you have to study. Spend some time doing that, certainly over this weekend, but also enjoy the weekend. Enjoy the real blessing of good health that I hope everybody's got. And we will be here and we will be back next Wednesday. Thank you, June, as always, for being on the chat box. Thank you, Megan. Have a great week. Enjoy. And we'll see you all again next week. Okay?
Yes, sounds good. Best of luck, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening and watching the Extra Mile podcast for bar exam takers at celebrationbarreview.com.